The scent of garlic and melted mozzarella should have comforted Daniel Briggs. For nearly 2 decades, he had woken up to that smell, proudly stepping into Briggs Brothers Pizzeria, the small-town Connecticut eatery he'd built from nothing but his father's dough recipe and a rusted-out brick oven in the back of a strip mall. But today, the smell made his stomach churn. Daniel stood across the street in jeans 2 sizes too big, a faded Chicago Bears hoodie, and a Dodgers cap pulled low. Camouflage carefully chosen to fool even his longtime crew. He leaned against a lamppost, staring through the restaurant's front windows, where a pair of employees behind the counter laughed a little too easily for his liking. Something had gone wrong, horribly wrong, and it wasn't just the sudden drop in revenue that had triggered his suspicions. 3 months ago, Briggs Brothers had been bustling. Families lined up out the door every Friday, and the local college practically fueled its entire football team on his meatball subs. Then, without warning, the tide shifted. Bad reviews began piling up online. Cold slices, rude staff, wrong orders. Loyal customers like the Bensons, who'd hosted every birthday party there since 2012, vanished. Daniel dismissed the first wave as coincidence. The second made him nervous. The third terrified him. He tapped open Yelp on his phone, scrolling past a fresh 1-star review. Hair in the sauce. Cashier shrugged and said, "Not my problem. Place has gone downhill." Daniel swallowed hard. He knew his kitchen staff better than most. No one worked in his backline without a net on their heads and gloves on their hands. He enforced it like a man possessed. Today wasn't about spreadsheets or blame. He was here to watch, to see firsthand what had become of his place, his legacy. He crossed the street. The bell above the door gave a weak jingle as he stepped inside. It had a rasp to it, a tiny hitch in the tone he would have fixed himself a year ago. The fluorescent lights hummed a little louder than he remembered, casting a pale sheen on the cracked tile floor. At the counter stood 2 employees, Carter and Maddie, both younger hires brought in by the new assistant manager while Daniel had taken a brief medical leave last fall. "Yeah?" Carter mumbled, glancing at him briefly. "Just a slice of sausage and a fountain drink," Daniel muttered, intentionally pitching his voice higher, almost nasally. "That'll be $8.25, Maddie chimed without looking up from her phone. Daniel paid in cash, carefully noting that Carter didn't punch anything into the POS. Instead, he scribbled something onto a slip of yellow paper, not a receipt, just a sticky note, and called the order back into the kitchen. He chose a table near the counter, slid into the plastic booth and waited. The pizza arrived lukewarm. The cheese had that thick, rubbery sheen that said it had been under a heat lamp just a bit too long. Daniel took a bite and immediately grimaced. This wasn't just sloppy. It was deliberate. His father's sauce, perfected over 30 years, tasted flat. The spices were off, missing entirely or drowned out by something metallic and bitter. He let the slice flop onto the tray and kept listening. The lunch rush started. College, kids, delivery drivers, even a few nurses from the urgent care clinic across the street. Daniel noticed a pattern. No one was smiling. Complaints were met with robotic apologies. Every order was written on paper or no POS entries. Receipts were either missing or printed on plain white copy paper. Sloppy, but perhaps calculated. Then came the gut punch. A mother in scrubs stormed up to the counter, waving a takeout box. "My son has a peanut allergy. This was supposed to be cheese only. It's covered in pesto. Pesto!" Maddie didn't even blink. "We're short-staffed. The owner's not around to fix everything." "Where is the owner?" the woman barked. "He's traveling." "Business issues," Carter said smoothly. "We're doing the best we can." Daniel's hand clenched under the table. He hadn't left the state in 6 months, but it got worse. When the woman finally left, fuming, Maddie leaned over to Carter, her voice low, but not low enough. "Damn, this is easier than I thought," she whispered. "Still thinks customers just got picky, guys clueless." Carter chuckled. Long as the cash keeps flowing and he's not here, I'm good playing along. Phase 2's next. Daniel's blood went cold. He slipped his phone from his hoodie pocket and tapped the voice recorder. The betrayal he suspected wasn't paranoia. It was real and intentional. And from the sound of it, this wasn't just about poor service. This was war. Daniel kept his head down, pretending to sip from the paper cup that tasted more like metal than cola. His hands trembled beneath the table, though his expression stayed slack. He had spent years building this place with his bare hands, and now 2 20-somethings were chuckling about gutting it for scraps. He stared at Carter, watching him toss a $10 bill into the till and then slip a second bill into his hoodie pocket. It was subtle, quick. If Daniel hadn't been watching for it, he wouldn't have noticed. His jaw clenched as he leaned closer to his phone, making sure every word, every snicker was being caught. They were stealing from him, mocking him, poisoning his food, metaphorically or otherwise. And phase 2? What the hell was that supposed to be? A new voice snapped him out of his thoughts. "Where's Kendra?" someone asked. Daniel glanced toward the side entrance. A young server, Ava, one of the newer hires, was standing with her arms crossed, talking to Maddie. Her voice was sharper than Daniel expected. Maddie shrugged, barely glancing at her. Called out. Again. Not our problem. Ava didn't. Seemed convinced. She said she got screamed at by a customer last night for an order that was totally wrong. She said she's been catching heat every shift. You guys keep making her run food that's not even close to what was ordered. Maddie rolled her eyes. She's dramatic, always has been. You keep throwing her under the bus, Ava snapped. This isn't what I signed up for. Carter stepped in, his voice oily. Then maybe you should find another job. You're not irreplaceable. You know? Ava opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but then shook her head and backed off toward the kitchen. Daniel's heart sank. He liked Ava. He remembered interviewing her. She had been respectful, eager, and sharp, not the type to cause drama. But he saw it now. Carter and Maddie had built a system of fear. Whoever didn't fall in line got pushed out or pushed down. And Kendra, she was one of his best floor workers. Her calls in sick, the order screw-ups. He hadn't believed the manager's explanation, and now he knew why. A customer near the window stood up with a half-eaten calzone, waving for attention. "Hey, there's a long hair in this thing." Maddie didn't even look at the food. "Sorry, kitchen's been off today. You want a refund?" "Do I want a—" The man sputtered. "I want to talk to the owner." Carter, without missing a beat, replied, "Mr. Briggs is on a spiritual retreat. Middle of nowhere, no signal. Sorry." Daniel almost barked a laugh. A spiritual retreat. He'd been in his home office reviewing invoices for 3 straight weeks. It was worse than he'd imagined. They were sabotaging him with deliberate tactical precision. The fake refund slips, the skimming, the rumors about him being absent, all of it crafted to make him look like a ghost while they bled his business dry. He knew now what he was up against. But he also knew he needed help. Daniel waited until both cashiers ducked into the back to restock cups before slipping out of his seat and heading outside, tossing his mostly uneaten slice in the trash. He turned the corner quickly, peeled off the Dodgers cap and pulled out his phone. There was only one person he trusted with something like this, Rachel Gentry. Rachel had been his assistant manager for 8 years before leaving last fall to start her own diner 2 towns over. She'd always had a nose for trouble and 0 tolerance for dishonesty. The two of them had shared more late-night war room sessions than he could count. If anyone could help him rebuild and root this out, it was her. He hit her number. "Dan," Rachel answered on the first ring. "Didn't expect to hear from you. Everything okay?" "No," he said, his voice lower than he meant it to be. "It's bad. I just went undercover in my own restaurant. They're robbing me blind, Rachel. Tampering with orders. Lying to customers. There's talk about some phase 2. There was a beat of silence. "You're serious?" Dead serious. And I got some of it recorded, but I think there's more, way more. Who's behind it? 2 cashiers, maybe more. But it's organized, deliberate. This isn't just lazy employees. This is a damn operation. Rachel exhaled sharply. Want me to come down there? I need more than that, Daniel said. I need eyes inside, someone who can blend in, quietly. Already know who I'm sending, Rachel said. A guy named Travis just got out of culinary school. Smart, quiet, and not connected to you. I'll have him apply tomorrow. You need to act like you've never seen him. Perfect, Daniel said. And Rachel? Yeah? Thank you. I'm not losing my father's restaurant to a couple of con artists with sticky fingers. You won't, she promised. We'll burn them down before they burn you out. Daniel hung up, slid his phone into his pocket, and stared up at the fading sign of Briggs Brothers Pizzeria. The red neon open flickered slightly, like even it was uncertain how much longer it would last. But Daniel wasn't uncertain anymore. This war had just gotten reinforcements. The following afternoon, Briggs Brothers Pizzeria buzzed with the early dinner crowd. Daniel sat in his office, officially anyway. In truth, he wasn't even in the building. Across the street, parked in a battered Toyota Corolla borrowed from his cousin, he watched the front windows with a pair of dark aviator sunglasses and a voice recorder running on his lap. Inside, Carter manned the counter, charm dialed up to 11, handing out slices with greasy grins. Maddie shuffled through papers near the register. They looked like model employees to anyone just walking in. But Daniel knew better now. The plan was already in motion. At 4:12 p.m., the door opened and in walked Travis, Rachel's plant. He wore a cheap flannel shirt, black jeans, and had a quiet demeanor that made him instantly forgettable. Daniel watched as Travis approached the counter, filling out the application. Carter lazily slid across the counter without even asking his name. Within minutes, Travis was shaking Maddie's hand and being led to the back for a casual kitchen trial. Fast. Too fast. They were clearly desperate for staff, which played perfectly into Daniel's hands. He fired off a text to Rachel. He's in. They barely asked questions. She replied instantly, Told you. Give it 2 days. He'll know where the rot's deepest. Daniel leaned back and exhaled, but his moment of calm didn't last. Carter and Maddie had taken to whispering near the POS again, and while he couldn't hear them from the car, he could read enough from their body language. They were planning something. Back in his office later that evening, now in proper clothes, and no longer in disguise, Daniel reviewed the new receipts Carter had left on his desk. Something was off. The paper was thin, the ink faded, and the timestamps were inconsistent. He flipped through the last 3 days' worth and found identical orders stamped with different times. None of them matched the nightly summaries from the POS system. They were printing fake receipts, and worse, Daniel realized, they were creating 2 ledgers, one for him and one for themselves. He looked up sharply when Ava knocked. "Hey," she said, eyes shifting around. "You got a second?" "Always," Daniel replied, gesturing her inside. She closed the door behind her. "I don't know what's going on exactly, but something's not right with those 2. Daniel tilted his head. "Go on." "They keep pulling me off delivery runs and then sending Carter instead. I found one of my cancelled tickets in the trash. Someone had scratched off the address. I recognized the name, though. It was Mrs. Ellison, the real estate agent." Daniel's eyebrows rose. "Mrs. Ellison, she hasn't ordered from us in a month." Ava nodded. "I called her. She said she never got her order last week. Just got a Venmo refund out of nowhere." Daniel's pulse quickened. Mrs. Ellison was the same agent who tried to convince him to sell the restaurant last summer. She had been pushy, unusually so, offering him more than market value for the building. Daniel had refused. He didn't want to turn his father's dream into another strip mall burrito chain. Something clicked in his mind. Carter and Maddie weren't just freelancing their own scam. Someone was using them. pushing them. Targeting his business for more than just pocket money, he stood up suddenly, grabbing his car keys. "You still have her address?" Ava nodded and scrawled it onto a sticky note. 10 minutes later, Daniel pulled into the cul-de-sac, where Mrs. Ellison lived. Her house stood neat and proud behind a white fence with a fresh for sale sign posted in the yard. He knocked twice. The door opened and Mrs. Ellison peered out, startled. "Mr. Briggs! Oh my, what a surprise!" "I need to ask you something," Daniel said quickly. "Last week, did one of my delivery drivers come here?" Her face twisted. "No, I never saw anyone. I ordered a veggie calzone, but it never came. Then someone named C refunded me through Venmo. Did you save the transaction?" She grabbed her phone and pulled up the app. Daniel's stomach dropped. The refund had come from an account labeled C. Weston, Carter's last name. He took a screenshot. "Thanks. You just helped me more than you know." Back at the restaurant, Travis texted Daniel a photo of a small black vial sitting on the shelf in the walk-in cooler next to the sauce containers. Caption: "Maddie told me it's a sauce neutralizer. Asked if I wanted to learn how to use it. Said it helps keep the taste consistent. Want me to grab it?" Daniel stared at the message. They weren't just stealing. They weren't just lying. They were drugging the damn food. He texted back, "Not yet, but don't eat anything they hand you, and don't leave that bottle unattended. That's our evidence." The war had officially crossed a line, and Daniel Briggs had just decided something. He was going to burn their little house of lies to the ground, brick by brick. By the next morning, Daniel's office had become something of a war room. Travis had pulled off a minor miracle. He'd not only taken clear photos of the vial, its label crudely scratched off, but he'd also captured Maddie instructing him on how to use it on video. The recording showed her dumping a few drops of the clear liquid into a half-full sauce bucket and laughing as she said, "It dulls all the flavor like, totally numbs it. Old man Briggs thinks people stopped liking his pizza. Meanwhile, we're making it taste like cardboard on purpose." Daniel stared at the video with a mix of rage and awe. "They're not even hiding it," he said to Sarah, Rachel's other contact, who had joined him that morning as a forensic accountant with a passion for catching thieves. "They think you're weak," Sarah said, flipping through financial statements Daniel had printed out for her. "And Carter's been running a cash siphoning operation since day one. Between fake refunds, unlogged orders, and bogus receipts, you've lost at least 15 grand in the last 60 days. Daniel's hands tightened on the edge of his desk. "And now they're destroying the recipes my father spent 30 years perfecting. It's not just theft, it's erasure." Sarah nodded. "You ready for this next part? Let's do it." That afternoon, Daniel filed a complaint with the health department, not anonymously, not as a last-ditch scare tactic. This was a trap. Sarah helped him word the report carefully, not accusing, but concerned. He included the phrase possible, tampering with food quality agents and multiple customer illness complaints. The goal wasn't just to bring inspectors in, the goal was to make Carter and Maddie panic, and panic they did. By evening, Carter was pacing nervously behind the counter, glancing toward the kitchen every few seconds. Maddie whispered fiercely into her phone, shooting dirty looks at Ava and Travis, as if one of them had snitched. In the office, Daniel watched it all unfold on the security feed. The new cameras he had installed, which neither Carter nor Maddie had bothered to look. For it captured everything, their whispering, their panic. The moment Carter grabbed the vial from the cooler and slipped it into his pocket. "They're going to try to dump it," Sarah said. "Bet you anything." "Let them try," Daniel replied. He had already sent Travis a message. "Track the vial. We need to know where it ends up." Sure enough, 20 minutes later, Travis texted from behind the building. Carter flushed it down the storm drain. "I got it on video, time-stamped, full face in frame. It was all coming together." But Daniel wanted a full confession, something irrefutable, something that would stick, even if a good lawyer tried to spin it, so he decided to play one final card. That night, he returned to the restaurant after close and left a single note in the register. Just 6 words, owner knows, meeting midnight, alone. He signed it DB. He knew Carter would find it, knew Maddie would be there too, snooping over his shoulder, and just as he predicted, at 11:58 p.m., a silver Nissan pulled into the parking lot. Daniel watched from the shadows across the street. Carter and Maddie got out. Carter looked rattled. Maddie, pissed. They entered through the side door. Inside, Daniel waited at a table in the dark. A single lamp overhead cast enough light for his face to be visible, but not the camera rolling silently from above. "Shut the door," he said. Carter did. "So, what's this about?" "You tell me," Daniel said quietly. "I'd love to hear it from your mouth." "Look," Maddie jumped in, "if this is about the source thing, that was just a joke. I have video," Daniel said. "Audio, screenshots, a Venmo receipt linking Carter directly to stolen refund money. And just last week, the health inspector found traces of that chemical in our kitchen." Carter turned pale. "You're bluffing." "I'm not," Daniel said. "You've got 2 options. Start talking, or I take it all to the cops tomorrow morning." "You don't have anything on Dylan," Maddie muttered. Daniel's brows lifted. "So you just gave me a name?" Carter shot her a look. "Jesus, Maddie." She threw up her hands. "He already knows." "Yeah, I know about Dylan," Daniel said, standing up. "I know he promised you both a cut when the restaurant fails. I know Riverside Properties is planning to redevelop this block. And I'm the last holdout. I know you thought you'd get a bonus when I sell." The room went quiet, except for the ticking of the wall clock. "But here's what you don't know," Daniel said, stepping forward. "Dylan's already flipped. And you two?" He looked each of them in the eyes. "You're the only people left holding the bag." Carter and Maddie looked at each other, faces white with fear. Daniel pressed a pen onto the table. "This record's audio. It's active. If you want any chance of a lighter sentence, you'll start explaining everything, now." Carter swallowed hard. "He said you were checked out, man. Said you were gonna sell anyway. I was going to refinance," Daniel growled. "Until I saw how deep the rot went," Maddie whispered. "We didn't know they were going to screw us over too." Daniel sat down again. "Then tell me everything, and pray that you still have a future." As the confessions started pouring out, Daniel kept his expression neutral, but inside he was already planning tomorrow. The next morning, the sky over Norwich, Connecticut, burned a soft orange as the sun crept over the rooftops, and Daniel Briggs stood outside Briggs Brothers Pizzeria with a legal folder tucked under his arm and 2 state troopers waiting quietly. Beside him, it was 8:59 a.m. At exactly 9 the restaurant doors opened. Inside, Carter and Maddie sat at a booth, heads hung low, both having been told to report for a final review of their employment. They didn't realize the officers were already stepping in behind them. Daniel followed, his boots quiet on the tiles he had personally laid a decade ago. He felt calm, more than he expected. Maybe it was the knowledge that the worst was over. Maybe it was the years of his father's voice in his head saying, "Protect the dough, protect the name." Carter looked up first and froze. Maddie blinked in twice, then stood as if trying to come up with an excuse, but one of the officers stepped forward, badge in hand. "Carter Weston?" "Maddie Rivera," the officer said, voice steady. "We need you to come with us. You're not under arrest at this time, but you are persons of interest in an ongoing investigation." "What the—" Carter stammered, then shot a glare at Daniel. "You set us up!" Daniel didn't flinch. "No, you set yourselves up. I just made sure the truth had a microphone." As the officers led them out, local news vans started pulling into the lot. Daniel had called the press himself, anonymously of course, and tipped them off about a surprising development at one of the town's most iconic eateries. He returned inside and looked around. Ava was already behind the counter, Travis checking prep in the kitchen. A new energy buzzed through the place, relief mostly, but also pride. The infection had been cut out. Now it was time to rebuild. Later that day, with the news spreading fast and traffic to the restaurant spiking, Daniel stood in front of a packed dining room to make a statement. "Most of you know this place as a pizzeria," he said. "But to me, this is more than a business. It's my family's name. My father built this place to feed more than just stomachs. He built it to feed this community." He paused, eyes scanning the room. Familiar faces, first-time visitors, and even a couple of curious reporters with notepads and cameras. Over the past few months, someone tried to tear that down from the inside. And while I was slow to catch it, I'm not slow anymore. The people responsible have been exposed, and with the help of some honest folks. He looked toward Ava, Travis, and Sarah. "We're back, and we're stronger than ever." A cheer rippled through the crowd. Daniel raised his voice just enough to cut through the noise. "Starting today, Briggs Brothers is launching something new. 10% of every dollar we make will go into a fund, a watchdog program for other local restaurants in this state, who are being targeted the same way we were. Because this wasn't just about a pizza shop. It's about fighting back against predatory development and sabotage disguised as business." The applause this time was thunderous. After the crowd began to disperse and orders resumed, Sarah found him back in the office, flipping through a thick file of legal documents. "You sure you're up for the next part?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "RICO charges against Riverside Properties are already moving. The FBI was happy to take my packet, especially with Dylan and his folder of dirty secrets turning state's witness." She smirked. "You really pulled it off. You didn't just save the restaurant, you launched a war." Daniel chuckled. "A quiet war, the kind where we bake our way to victory." That afternoon, Daniel stood behind the counter again for the first time in months. Flour dusted his apron, sweat on his brow, but his smile came easy. He kneaded dough with the same rhythm his father once used. Ava was running the front, Travis manning the oven. The line stretched out the door. Every bite served was proof that tradition couldn't be killed by sabotage. Around 5, his teenage daughter Nora wandered in, still in her track uniform, a backpack slung low. "Can I help make sauce?" she asked casually, like she used to when she was 7. Daniel held up a well-worn handwritten recipe card. "You're ready to learn the real version?" he asked. Nora grinned. "The Armenian one?" He nodded. "Time you knew what makes this place ours." As they moved to the back kitchen, Daniel looked once more toward the front. The neon sign buzzed strong. The dining room was full. The pizza smelled right again. This wasn't just recovery, this was resurrection, and it tasted like victory, hot, fresh, and finally served with justice. The end.